Ahri finally leaves the OP tier due to her nerfs, Sona is actually an incredibly powerful support now thanks to her buff, while Annie got absolutely hammered by her adjustments. So we'll have the full rundown on all of this, along with a complete update on any new emerging trends and the solo queue tier list for every single role. And let's be honest, picking the best champions is fun, but is that really enough on its own? I don't know about you, but locking in Set just because he's OP tier doesn't really help if you're lacking crucial knowledge on how to lane properly. However, you can stomp lane phase with Set when using our brand new courses that go hard in teaching you everything you need to know, which will have you speed running any game below Diamond. All from a rank 1 challenger who has used these tips to dominate not 1, but 5 regions in solo queue. And that's just for top lane. Your mid lane OP tier Yasuo becomes actually unstoppable when you know all the essentials of mid lane thanks to the new mid lane series over on our platform that our top 10 challenger player Strompist has tirelessly worked on exclusive to our members. Our tier list gets you the right champions, SkillCapped gets you the right skills. And we're so confident it works, if you don't climb 5 divisions while actively using the platform, you literally don't pay a single cent. So why hold yourself back this season and finally get the rank you deserve? And with that being said, let's get into it. So top lane is the one role where the meta has stayed pretty similar to where it was last patch. Our predictions going into the patch have played out quite well for top lane, as neither Shen nor Renekton gained enough power from their buffs to move up, and then Gwen and Yorick did not end up losing very much power from their nerfs. Deadman's plate nerf has also turned out rather negligible, so it was a pretty useless patch overall in terms of shaking up the top lane meta. I don't know about you guys, but it would be really nice if Riot actually issued some meaningful changes that significantly shifted the meta, because we've literally had Urgot and Kayle rated as 2 of the best picks for almost the entirety of the season. One adjustment we're making to the top lane tier list for mid-patch is moving Mordekaiser down into B tier. Turns out that the Mord change from 25.7 has actually significantly influenced his power level. It was a pretty under-the-radar nerf to his Q, where it now casts in the direction Mord is facing, and he's lost over 1% win rate due to the change. Moving on to the jungle now, one champion who's seen a nice spike in power and who has a very underrated build for 25.8 is Talon. Talon jungle with Opportunity Rush is performing absolutely amazing so far this patch. Opportunity had 3 lethality added onto it, which actually makes the item more appealing as a rush item, because lethality as a stat is more valuable earlier in the game when enemies have yet to stack up much armor. It's still early on, so we'll have to see how this develops throughout the patch, but an Opportunity Rush into Ghostblade 2nd is looking like a really strong core for Talon jungle. Talon jungle has actually become pretty popular in general lately and is in a really good spot right now, so we'll be moving him up into the S tier. One of the easiest to pick up and most versatile junglers that you can play for 25.8 is Volibear. What's so great about Volibear right now is that he can run either a heavier magic damage setup or a heavier AD setup depending on what his team needs. The Cosmic Drive into Flicker Blades build is the most popular right now and is insanely powerful, but there's actually an alternative AD build that you should not be sleeping on. Our challenger jungler Skillshot, who's a Volibear main over on EU West, has been liking a Black Cleaver Rush on his volley, and he actually just completed a full game commentary where he's playing the build that has just been uploaded to our website. It's Black Cleaver into Iceborne Gauntlet 2nd, so you've got some really nice sticking power and consistent dueling strength with the build. Builds aside, volley in general is such an underrated duelist early on, and this is something Skillshot really emphasizes in his commentary.
And Rengar should be coming here any second now. Again, I still win 1v1s. There he is. And there we go. We get a kill on the Rengar. One of the most strongest early game junglers, as you can see.
Through good jungle tracking, he's able to invade Rengar at his Raptor camp and easily pick up the solo kill. So we're going to be giving Volibear an added push up the tier list for mid-patch, going from S into OP tier. Alright everyone, this is what the jungle tier list is going to be looking like as we reach the midway point of the patch. OP tier is going to be locked down by Jarvan, Volibear, and Yorick, which mean Mundo will be dropping down to S. We noted in the pre-patch tier list that we expected for Yorick to remain a strong pick even after his nerfs, and he most definitely has, so no further drop down the tier list for him. With Volibear moving up into the OP tier, we are forced to drop a champion down to S, and the odd man out has been Mundo. Mundo has actually been hurt indirectly this patch by the Deadman's plate nerf. It's nothing crazy as he's still a really strong S tier pickup, but he is a tad bit weaker compared to last patch. So if you guys watched the pre-patch tier list and saw the Ahri rundown, we were leaning more towards the nerfs not actually impacting her all that much, but turns out they've been pretty impactful. From the damage tests we performed, it didn't seem like she'd be that much worse off, but win win rate has fallen over 2%. W cooldown nerf and armor growth nerf is what we may have underestimated, as damage-wise, Ahri really didn't lose much of her full combo. One thing we were correct on is that Emax second has now become more valuable. Emax second had a 0.3% lower win rate than W max in 25.7, but now in 25.8, Emax second is outperforming W max second by around 1%. This is because it's Ahri's W at max rank that got nerfed the hardest. With just 1 point in Ahri W, it's only a 5 damage loss, so if you max your E out second, you don't actually get affected by that W nerf until much later in the game. So all in all though, Ahri has ended up losing a significant amount of strength even if you're going for the E max second, so she's going to be dropping down into the A tier for mid-patch. So it turns out that the Annie adjustments have been incredibly negative. We showed you guys in pre-patch how R damage dropped off significantly, and even though Q and W damage went up, it's definitely looking like the R nerfs have heavily outweighed those buffs. Losing all that consistent damage on Tibbers is just proving to be super detrimental, as over the course of a more extended fight where Tibbers is able to get a bunch of auto attacks off, the DPS power of Annie is much lower now. We were thinking that because of the Q and W buffs, that Annie could end up staying power neutral because of the fact that she's now stronger without her R available, but so much of your win condition with Annie is focused on playing around her R cooldown, and if you're fighting when R is up, the champ is just flat out weaker. So it's likely we see some follow-up buffs for Annie within the next patch, as she's being moved into the C tier as one of the weakest mid laners for 25.8. Alright, Annie and Ahri dropping down the tier list are two of the more significant moves of the patch. However, there's a bunch more to discuss. For the mid lane tier list, now that Ahri has lost her spot on top of the meta, OP tier is actually looking different for a change. We now have Yasuo, Vex, and Anivia moving up and locking down the OP tier slots. Yasuo has been super strong ever since his direct buffs from a few patches ago, and also due to the rise in power of Yuntal on him. Anivia has been a great mid laner all season long, but has got even better recently due to the Catalyst buffs. More mana on Catalyst and its smoother build path are great for a mid laner like Anivia, who just wants to reach her level 6 unscathed. And then for Vex, she's just a solo queue monster due to how many one-sided matchups she has. Vex completely destroys meta mids like Sylas, LeBlanc, Yasuo, and Yone, so there's so much value to having her as a pick you can pull out. A few other champs moving up the tier list for this patch include Hui, Sylas, and Zoe. So the Hui and Zoe buffs have both landed slightly more positive than what we were anticipating, and are getting that push into S tier as a result. Turns out Sylas is actually a pretty good user of Rod of Ages right now, so with Catalyst buffed last patch, he's seen a small spike in relative power, enough to push him into S tier. So mid lane was definitely the role with the most amount of movement for this patch, as we head on over to ADC, and it's the complete opposite. Jinx and Lucian remain in the OP tier as two of the strongest carries of the patch, and Tristana is going to move back up to join them, as her nerf really didn't hit hard at all. If you guys missed our OP builds video for 25.8, one of the more interesting builds that has made its way back into meta for this patch is Crit Kai'Sa. And it's not just a fun new build to run either, it's legitimately the most optimal Kai'Sa build in a lot of situations, as you just flat out deal more damage on 2 items with Yuntal and Infinity Edge, as opposed to going Kraken into Rageblade. And we know this because of the new ADC itemization course that has been released on our website, where we break down in detail which items are best for every single ADC using side-by-side damage comparisons. We made this course because stat sites don't give you any context behind why items are played, constantly misleading people to throwing their games needlessly by buying the wrong items. For instance, stat sites have Kraken Slayer as the most played rush item on Kai'Sa, but most popular doesn't always mean the best, as Yuntal is much stronger than Kraken in many situations. Our brand new ADC itemization course is an industry first, where we break down every build for every single ADC, just like this new Crit Kai'Sa setup, which includes side-by-side damage comparisons for the viable build paths, so you'll always know the best build for ADC. Definitely check us out after this if you want to guarantee you'll never build wrong on an ADC again. Now there is one non-damage factor though that gives Kraken or Shiv Rush the edge up on Yuntal, and it's the fact that the build paths for the on-hit setups are much more efficient than Crit. You really need to base on 1300 gold for that BF sword in order for the Yuntal rush to feel best, so if you're basing on less than 1300 gold, there is still merit to rushing either Kraken or Shiv. So in short, if you have 1300 gold on your first base, go for Crit, and if not, side with Kraken or Shiv. It was just Zeri and Tristana who were changed for 25.8, and neither of their adjustments have been of much significance. Zeri didn't even end up gaining any win rate from her buff, so she continues to be rated in the A tier. Hui is actually pretty disgusting again as a bot lane carry due to his buffs this patch. Champ is up over a 53% win rate when played in the bot lane, so if you really want some free elo right now, then spamming some Hui is the way. Many ADC mains will hate us for saying this, but it's just facts right now that Sona is actually a top tier support after her buff. Being that Lulu and Karma have been nerfed in recent patches, and now Sona gets directly buffed, it's actually put her in a really good spot. Not only have we seen Sona's play rate nearly double this patch, but her win rate is up around 1% as well. How you need to be playing Sona for this patch in order to get the most out of her is by maxing your Q out first. About 50% of Sona players are still maxing W first, but with Q getting that added damage at max rank, it's just way more valuable to max out first now. Just going off the analytics, W max first was pretty similar power-wise to Q max last patch, as they had near identical win rates. Due to the Q buff though, Q max first is now winning over 2% more than W max, so that's a pretty significant gap. So in terms of enchanters for solo queue, Sona is now outclassing everyone else and is being moved up into the OP tier for mid-patch. So with one enchanter moving up in power, another drops down significantly as Yuumi is now in the dumpster. Other than the Annie adjustments, Yuumi nerfs are looking like the second most impactful changes of 25.8, as she's lost over 2% win rate. Champ can still work in niche situations like when paired up with Lucian, but blind picking Yuumi is definitely not worth it in the slightest right now. With both Ezreal and Yuumi being two of the weakest champs in their roles, the duo win rate is actually hilarious right now, with Ezreal Yuumi winning 39% of the time when paired together. Lucian Yuumi, on the other hand, is up around a 55% win rate, so if you can be picking Yuumi with Lucian, she's definitely still viable, but with most other ADCs, there are just better supports to play. So I'm sure many of you will be pleased to see that we're going to be moving Yuumi down into the support C tier for mid-patch. So here's how we have the support tier list constructed for this patch, as the major change is Sona moving up into the OP tier, taking Nami's spot. Sona should now be one of the highest priority supports for solo queue due to her buff, so definitely take advantage of her. With the likes of Karma, Lulu, and Yuumi all dropping in strength over the last few patches, we should start seeing a priority shift for enchanters. Melio, Nami, Sona, and Janna are all outperforming Karma, Lulu, and Yuumi for 25.8. So if you're someone who likes playing enchanters, then picking up any of those four has become much more valuable as of recent. We featured Fiddle's support on our solo carry list for this patch, and he's actually starting to see a lot more play now. Play rate has jumped up to around 2.5%, which is much higher than it was a few patches back when it was under 1%. Overall, definitely one of the most underrated supports for solo queue in 25.8, as the engage strength and roaming power of Fiddle support is hard for anyone to beat. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So that's gonna wrap everything up for the 25.8 mid-patch tier list update. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.